Good morning, everyone. We are the group 3 and we will be presenting to you the ADDIE model. So in the field of instructional design, which is exactly what it sounds like, the design of training programs, courses, and other educational initiatives, the ADDIE model is one of the most popular methodologies for structuring your course content. ADDIE model was originally created in 1975 by the Center for Educational Technology at Florida State University for the United States Army. It was then quickly adopted by all the other military branches. So I will now present to you our presentation. So when we say ADDIE, it stands for Analysis, Design, Development, Implementation, and Evaluation. So let's start first with the analysis phase. I will now give the floor to Miss Dana.
So I will be discussing the first phase in the ADDIE, which is the analysis phase. So here in analysis phase, the instructional problem is classified, the instructional goals and objectives are established, and the learning environment and learning existing knowledge and skills are identified during the analysis phase. Next slide, please. So there are 4 sub-phases in analysis phase. So the first is the instructional goals, second is the instructional analysis, and third is the learner analysis. Fourth is the learning objective. So in instructional goals, for example, if your mother wants you to teach how to make a pizza, first, to do it effectively, your mom should have clearly defined what is the goal of that little training will be. Does she wants you to know how to build every type of pizza, or does your mom have a certain pizza in mind? Finding out and making a clear instructional goals can save a lot time of efforts, because once you have clearly defined what is your instructional goal, you are better equipped to develop the instruction. So the second would be the instructional analysis. So this phase is often not as simple as it seems. For example, the pizza analogy. Diba, it sounds easy on first, but there are basic steps. In each steps can have its own sub-steps. So the third will be the learner analysis. So here, this is what your learners already know. So if you have for example, if you have one specific student, it is easier to do analysis. You just need to talk to him or her. But if you have many students, you may have to do research, or you may have conduct a interview or survey, because knowing where your learner stands regarding your subject helps you know how much or how little you need to teach them. Because if you hadn't done a learner analysis and found that out, you could have wasted a lot of time and effort teaching him or her something he or she already knew about. So the last would be is the learning objective. This is what students should be able to do when the instruction is completed. They are usually in the form of skills, attitude, and knowledge. So a good way to write a learning objective is to fill in the following sentence. So by the time a student finishes this course, he or she should be able to blank. This is another time to be specific and use strong verbs that specifically define students' performance. So for the example, we know our instructional goals to teach your friend how to make a pizza, but we need to be more specific with our learning objectives. So based on our instructional analysis and learner analysis, we can come up with some good learning objectives. Like this, at the end of our course, our students should be able to first describe how to make a pizza dough from scratch, demonstrate how to roll it out evenly. Excuse me, sorry. So the first is describe how to make a pizza dough from scratch, demonstrate how to roll it evenly, and the fourth is explain at what temperature the pizza needs to be cooked and for how long. So knowing what our learning knowing what our learning objective are is going to go a long way in helping our design our course. So that's the four sub-phases. Analysis is important in ADDIE model because it helps us identify learning goals and objectives. It also helps us gather information about what our audience already know and what they still need to learn. During this stage, it is when you conduct an in-depth training, needs assessment to help you identify the gaps. That's all for the analysis phase. Now I will pass the floor to Ma'am Laika for the second phase. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Going on to the second phase of the ADDIE model, which is the design phase. It says here, a learning solution that aligns objectives and strategies with instructional goals. The process of specifying how it is to be learned. So basically, in the design phase, the question that you should always remember is that how are you going to deliver the course for them to learn and apply? And in the design phase, you should always consider that it must be systematic or logical in identifying a set of planned activities to attain the goals that you have written in the analysis phase. And in the design phase, next slide please, there are three procedures. The first one is the design assessments. In the design assessments, you are going to create an activity that will support your goals or learning objectives in the analysis phase. And for example, one of your learning objectives in the analysis phase is that the students will perform their own jingle. And of course, you will consider the context or the performance setting or where they are going to perform their jingle. And maybe they could perform in the gym or in the school gym because it has a large space. And in doing their assessments, for example, their quizzes, their tests, you should always remember that uh, you will create a question, a direct question. Do not use trick questions uh, that will trick them, or you should create a clear, a clear question for them. And the second one is the choose course format. In choosing course format, it is simply the delivery system or what are you going to use? A medium by which you are going to deliver the course. For example, is it face-to-face, modular, or blended course? And the third one is create an instructional strategy. And creating an instructional strategy, these are, for examples, their assessments, their activities, their performance, their worksheets, and their projects. These are their activities, follow-up activities that they will do after giving them the content of the course. And the third phase will be discussed by Miss Ariane.
Okay, so let's now move on to the development phase. So the development phase is where instructional designers and developers create and assemble the content assets that were blueprinted in the design phase. In this phase, storyboards are created, content is written, and graphics are designed. If e-learning is involved, programmers work to develop and or integrate technologies. So basically in this phase, the development stage is where the actual course or creation occurs. So there is no right way to do this. And one thing to keep in mind is if you gather all your assets up front, the development portion of creating your course will go more quickly. So during next slide, so thank you. During the development phase, the developers needs to or curriculum developers needs to do three things. The first one is to create a sample. The second one is develop the course materials. And the third one is conduct a run through. So in here, always check for accuracy of content, the look, feel, and flow of the course. And then you will be ready to implement. So I will now pass the floor to Mr. Jesper.
Okay, thank you, Miss Ariane. So we now have the implementation phase. So here, the phase in which learners actually receive the instruction and materials prepared for them throughout the previous three steps of ADDIE model. So during the implementation, you will also be checking to ensure all content functions work properly. So we have the procedures here. We have the number one, train the instructor. So a lot of cases, the person that develop a course or training is also the one that teaches it. But there are also plenty of situations where the developer turns the course over to a different trainer instructor. They have to know the objectives and activities they planned and be familiar with all the media and assessment he is going to use. Second, we have the prepare the learners. So this means making sure they have the tools and knowledge necessary to participate in the class. In higher education settings, this means verifying they have taken the proper prerequisites or gone through any necessary orientation and are trained on any learning management software that would be utilized in the class. Third is arrange the learning space. So this means more than just making sure that there are enough chairs and desks for everyone. It is also a good idea to test any multimedia equipment beforehand in the actual learning space. This will help ensure the instruction will go smoothly without any technical difficulties. Instructors should also do things like print out all the handouts they will use during the instruction and make sure they have a whiteboard and markers ready if they are planning on using them. Getting these types of details squared away beforehand allows instructors to put their full attention to delivering the course and focusing on the learner's experience. So we now have the last phase of ADDIE's model. We have the evaluation phase. So evaluation objectives reflect reflect much of the discoveries found in the analysis process. These discoveries include the objective and expectations of the learner. When looking at the process, you must avoid the thought that it is structured in chronological order. Rather, the ADDIE model is a continuous circle with overlapping boundaries. So, here, while listed as the fifth and final step of the ADDIE training model, the evaluation will run iteratively as long as your course is live. This is important to ensure features are always working. The course content aligns with students' expectations and learning goals, and instructors are able to efficiently engage with students. So we have two forms of evaluation. First, we have the formative evaluation. The purpose for conducting formative evaluation is mainly because the design decisions, media, and manner of implementation may seem ideal on paper, but in reality, the best intended plans for instruction may not play out as expected. Formative evaluation is the process of gathering feedback, information to determine whether any of the work up to this point needs to be renewed or revised. Formative evaluation is conducted in at least three phases. So it begins with a one-to-one evaluation, then a small group evaluation, and finally a field trial. You will assess here the clarity, impact, and feasibility, but we will not dwell on that much. So the second is the summative evaluation. Summative evaluation is called summative because it is intended to summarize the result of an instructional program after it has been run for several times. There are many reasons for conducting a summative evaluation, but it is primarily to determine whether the problem that precipitated that the need for instruction has been resolved. Implementing summative evaluation after the course will help you make sure your course is helping reach your instructional goals. Okay, so that is our presentation. Thank you, everyone.